Welcome, foolish mortals! Today on the Disney Newsreel, Disneyland is canceling their annual passes, a new exhibit is being added to Epcot, and we got an update on Disney's Magical Express. All that is coming up on today's episode of the Disney Newsreel. So I'm going to start out today by talking about the Disneyland annual passes. So Disneyland this week has decided that they're no longer going to offer their annual passes in the capacity that they are in, and a lot of people have been confused by this. And like even my wife, just for a little bit, was concerned about them just not flat out not having annual passes anymore. But that's not the case. As far as we know, as far as any of the information that has come out about it, what Disneyland is doing is they're taking their current annual pass program that they have and they're doing away with that. They're going to revamp the annual pass program, and they'll probably add in some different features to it. They'll probably take some features off of it and just kind of play, and essentially I think they'll just kind of play around with it and see what it was that the annual pass holders had wanted that they didn't get with their annual passes, and see the things that they were offered but didn't really care about. I think that's essentially what they're going to do. And it seems like they're just taking this opportunity, since Disneyland is still closed and has been for almost a year now. They're just taking this opportunity to do something like this, because I mean, nobody can go anyway right now, so why not make this kind of change now when it's going to be easier to transition? This also left the Premier Passports kind of up in the air. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Premier Passports, essentially what that is an annual pass to both Disneyland and Walt Disney World Florida. And this was, I don't remember what the price tag was on a Premier Pass per person. I think it was like a little over $2,000 a person or something like that. Maybe a little more. But you would then have not necessarily unrestricted access, but nearly unrestricted access to both parks. You could go to Disneyland California or Walt Disney World in Florida and go to any of the parks in either one. I believe they had blackout dates on like some annual passes in both of them, but the Premier Passports are no longer going to be available. As near as we can see, the Premier Passports are going away permanently. And so I'm not necessarily surprised about this. I don't know, the Premier Passport, like there was some people that use it. I think it wasn't something that was as lucrative for Disney, because it wasn't something that a whole lot of people were really interested in. Because the people that are buying annual passes for Walt Disney World are the people that love Walt Disney World. They really only want to go to Walt Disney World, and the same for California. And a lot of the California ones, I think the number is somewhere in the 80 or 90th percentile. That 80 or 90% of, and I could be wrong on this, so don't take my word for that, but something like 80 or 90%, as far as I know, of the people who have annual passes to Disneyland California are locals. And they're people who are just going to Disneyland from different areas around LA and Southern California. And so there's really no need for them to have the Premier Passport to also be able to go to Walt Disney World. They really don't care. Also, as near as I've been able to tell with a few of them that I've talked to before, the Disneyland locals that go to Disneyland, the ones who are annual pass holders, they're kind of Disneyland purists. They don't like Disney World because it's not Disneyland. Like it's this weird thing. There's a little bit of an unspoken war between those of us who like Walt Disney World better versus Disneyland better. For me and Anna, we don't really care. We would go to either one. It's just that Walt Disney World is the one that we like just because it's bigger for us, and that's the one that we've been to. We haven't been to California yet. But I digress. Next up, Kevin Rafferty, Kevin Rafferty has been a Disney Imagineer since it was sometime in the 80s. He started with the Walt Disney Company in 1975, I believe it was, or something like that. worked his way up from a dishwasher in Disneyland, worked his way all the way up within about like 7 or 8 years or something like that, worked his way up to being an Imagineer. Or just in Imagineering, he wasn't an Imagineer yet. And so he was in the Imagineering department right around the time that Tokyo Disneyland was being built and developed, and also at the same time that Epcot was being developed. So he's been with Imagineering for something like 41-ish years or something like that. And Kevin Rafferty has made a statement earlier this week that he is officially going to retire from Walt Disney Imagineering in April, the beginning of April. He will be retiring on April 1st. And a part of me really hopes that because he's supposed to be retiring on April 1st, that it's an April Fool's joke and that he's not actually going away. But, I mean, he's been with Imagineering for 42 years. I wouldn't be surprised if he is retiring, and he definitely deserves it. So for those of you who don't know, Kevin Rafferty is one of the biggest minds behind a lot of our favorite attractions, our favorite parks and things like that. He is the Imagineer behind Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which has been a smash hit in Walt Disney World. He was also the mind behind Cars Land in Disneyland, California. He was one of the minds behind the Hollywood Tower of Terror. He was the one that really got that off the ground, simply because he was fascinated by the idea, and he just had to find a way to be able to sell it to Eisner. And he's worked on numerous rides. I don't think there's even a list in this article of the different rides and attractions and lands that he's worked in. No, there's not. I really wish there was, but that's okay. Let's see. So he started in Imagineering in 1978 is when he actually went to Imagineering. There was a massive recruitment period because they were starting to work on Epcot. And so they had a massive recruitment period, and so so Kevin Rafferty went over to, I think in his book he described it, he went over to, it was essentially done in a trailer. The interview was done in a trailer, and it was apparently raining cats and dogs. And so he finally gets inside the trailer, he's completely soaked, and just, it's not, a pretty picture. And he did end up getting the job. And the job was essentially as a custodian. But he was in with the other, he was in kind of the main area where all of the Imagineers would go to be together and to work on their projects. So for those of you who don't know who Kevin Rafferty is, you should look at Kevin Rafferty. He's done some amazing things. And for those of you Disney fans out there, go out and get his book. It's called Magic Journey, My Fantastical Walt Disney Imagineering Career. And it is super fascinating. I absolutely loved reading it. But he is, as near as I can tell, again, I hope it's not true, but he is retiring after 42 years is what it is. After 42 years with Walt Disney Imagineering. And if he is retiring, I wish him all the best of luck, because he's an awesome guy. And I've seen different interviews with him and interviews with people talking about him, and he's just an all-around great guy, and he's been great to work with. He's done some great things for the Disney parks. Thirdly, there's a new exhibit coming to Epcot, which actually is pretty interesting. It's going in the American Adventure Pavilion, which is not necessarily as exciting for me because Anna and I don't really spend a whole lot of time in the American Adventure exhibit. We just don't care as much about that as going into the other pavilions for the other cultures. Because, we live the American culture. We already know what it is. That's part of it. But this exhibit is called The Soul of Jazz, an American Adventure, and is coming to Epcot this February. So, for anybody who has been living under a Disney rock and has not seen, or at least heard of, Disney Pixar's Soul, it came out on Christmas Day. First off, you should definitely go give it a watch because it's really good. Secondly, that's what this exhibit is going to be based off of. So, featuring Joe Gardner from Disney Pixar's Soul, he's going to take you on a musical tour of America to learn about this He's going to take you on a musical tour of America to learn about this inspiring genre of music. So, as near as I can tell from this, because it doesn't give a huge amount of information on it, is that the Soul of Jazz American Adventure is going into where, for those of you who may have been there before, into Epcot before, in the American Pavilion, there is a little kind of show attraction thing in there. I believe it was, what was it called? Okay, so the reason I couldn't think of the name of it was because we've really never seen it, but it is just the American Adventure was what it's kind of like it's not a circle vision thing, but it's just kind of a, if I remember correctly, it's kind of a video, just a video that you watch, kind of about American culture. And so now they're changing it to the Soul of Jazz and American Adventure, so they've just redone a film, or just done a new film hosted by Joe Gardner. I don't know if this is going to be a permanent fixture, or if this is a temporary one, since they just released the movie Soul. I don't know, and it really doesn't say. I mean, I kind of hope they keep it in there, because I might be more willing to watch this than I would have been to watch the American Adventure, because I think it would be more interesting. So, for those of you who are Epcot fans, there's going to be something new for you. Go watch the Soul of Jazz in the American Pavilion. All right, last but not least, this is a story, and this is an update on a story, and I'll mention the earlier one as well. And this story was going to, and I believe I might have talked about it last week, but this story was going to possibly affect the trip, well, not possibly, definitely affect the trip that Anna and I are taking in October later this year. And that is that the Disney and Brightline had made, which is a train, for those who don't know, is a train transportation company. They make, I don't know if they're high-speed trains, but they're just essentially passenger trains. So Disney and Brightline have made a deal where they're going to build a Brightline train station at Disney Springs. And this station is going to connect Disney Springs with MCO, Orlando International Airport. Now, this is really cool because, I mean, that might be a faster way to get to Disney property rather than taking the Mears buses. Because Mears is the company that runs the buses that are used for Disney's Magical Express. And so it would be a faster mode of transportation to get there. And it was just, when Anna and I first saw it, we were like, that would be a really interesting thing to add in there. And it would take some of the pressure off of Magical Express as well, because those buses could get packed really easily. And one of the times that we were down there, we did end up having to wait for the next bus because the bus that came first was full. And so I think this would just take some of the stress off of that. But then Disney came out and said that they're going to discontinue the Magical Express service starting January 1st of 2022. So those Mears buses from Disney Magical Express are no longer going to be offered. That put a damper on our trip in October, because the Magical Express and having the ability to essentially check our luggage at Denver, at DIA in Denver, and then essentially not have to worry about it, and then it just shows up at our hotel room later that night when we're in Disney World. That was really nice. It was really nice, especially since we had Aiden. It was really nice to not have to try to lug all of our luggage around, as well as Aiden. And now that we're going to have our second child, it's even more pertinent for us to have that. And now we're not going to have that. And so that's going to make things really difficult. But there's an update from Mears. Mears issued a statement on the Magical Express service. And they have said that they are going to continue providing transportation to Walt Disney World. So you can still take the Mears buses to Walt Disney World. So yes, the statement from Mears is that Walt Disney World made us aware of their decision about discontinuing Magical Express. While we are disappointed Disney will no longer offer this service, we intend to continue offering transportation services between the airport and all area theme parks and hotels to meet the demand of our visitors now and in the future. So they have no intention of discontinuing transportation to Disney World. It's just, essentially, this was a free service that was offered because of the partnership with Disney. And so you'll still be able to get this transportation. You would just have to go through Mears themselves, and you would have to pay a fee for the transportation. And I'll see if maybe I can't look at any more of that information later. So there's the Mears buses, the shared shuttles. There's Mears taxis, and there's even private cars that you could hire as well. And this is an interesting statement because I didn't think this was necessarily true. Maybe, I don't know. But there's a statement at the end of this article that says Disney's Magical Express service was launched back in 2005. But when I went with my parents and my sister, it was 2003, and we rode those same buses, and our luggage was taken to our room, and I don't know if we made some special arrangements with Mears or what happened, but we definitely had essentially Magical Express service in 2003, so that's just an interesting thing to see, because as far as I was aware, that had been around since at least before 2003, maybe even just 2002 or something like that. But I don't know. Really, just for us, this is going to put a damper on our trip, and it makes it a lot more difficult. And between that and all of the changes that they're making at Disney parks, and either I or both Anna and I will have to sit down sometime in the near future, and we'll make another video going over essentially what we're going to do now for our trip based on this information, as well as all the other changes that are happening in Disney right now. So stay tuned for that one. But for any of you who are worried, Mears is still going to continue to take you to Disney property. So once January 1st of next year hits and that service is discontinued, you'll just have to pay for Mears to take you to Walt Disney World property. And I'm assuming that you would then have to take care of your luggage. You would have to go pick up your luggage and take it out to the motor coach, and then just take it from the motor coach up to your rooms. But that is all the news we have for this week. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope that we will see you all again next week. But until then, don't forget to thank the Phoenicians.